in the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to SOUQ News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, SOUQ News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. SOUQ News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, SOUQ News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. SOUQ News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
Broad Street. Broad Street, situated in Lagos Island, is steeped in Nigerian history. Once the biggest financial hub of the country, it housed the headquarters of major banks, linked the CBN, the stock exchange, and the loads of lender companies. Broad Street is a historically significant street. It has played a central role in the development of Lagos and history, an important commercial and administrative center for the British colonial authorities. It was also a home to some of the city's earliest modern buildings. Broad Street was a residential area in the pre-colonial era. With the British came the Methodist Boys High School in 1878 and the Broad Street Prison in 1882, renamed Freedom Park. The General Hospital, which was a British military hospital, was built in 1893, being the first general hospital in Nigeria. The old British Secretariat building, which is now the Federal Ministry of Justice, was built in 1906. Broad Street has seen a full turn into modern commercial office blocks, complexes, skyscrapers, and markets from the Outer Marina through Akpombo, early into the Adeliji Adele Road. Broad Street is one of the busiest streets in Nigeria on weekdays, where commercial activities take place day and night. From modern buildings to ancient structures, this street gives one a raw dose of life in Lagos. Broad Street is often referred to as Lagos Financial District. It boasts a mix of architectural styles, reflecting its long history, colonial-era buildings, Victorian and Edwardian architectural features, alongside more modern skyscrapers and structures. Broad Street remains a vital, vibrant part of the Nigerian economy. Broad Street. SOUQ Enlightenment.
Hello and welcome to SOUQ Pulse. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon and there's no better way to start the weekend than, hey, let's get pulsed on SOUQ. My name is Chuks, John-Rogers Chuks, and you know, on SOUQ Pulse, we get to look at issues that make sure families across Africa, be it Asia or Europe, things that they take for granted, but yes, that there is food on the table. Then you now start looking at us. Yes, we'll talk about policies, government policies, international policies, policies that come from donor agencies, multilateral organizations. We look at loans, who's giving, who's taking. There are a whole lot of indices that we get to look at, and we just talk how our business is faring. Are they making profit? Are they losing? At the end of the day, what do we say that brings profit to those countries, our countries moving forward? That is just what we discuss on SOUQ Pulse, and we never keep quiet about it. My name is still the same, you heard me. And today we are looking at very very good issue we started some weeks back, and that was supposed to happen every week, but we skipped that last week and talked more on productivity. We're still coming back to it, still more of productivity, but hey, don't go anywhere. SOUQ Pulse will be right back after this break. I'll get to introduce our guest and our topic, and we'll dive right into it. It's nice having you. Don't go anywhere.
My name is Veronica Nkechi Eze.
Charles Abana.
My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep
Watching SOUQ
News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found his root in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the life different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need the same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to SOUQ News. You don't touch that dial.
Welcome back. It's SOUQ Pulse, and like you know, we are looking at successful entrepreneurial projects, infrastructural projects that have been undertaken by individuals, governments, people that have stepped out of the stress, out of whatever you call a comfort zone, and put something down that the world can say, this is it. We're looking at those particular projects and asking ourselves, for those in Africa, how can we replicate it? What issues do they have, and how can they get better at getting this done in other places? For today, we are looking at the geometric power plant in Aba. Yes, you heard me. Some weeks back, we talked about the Lekki Seaport, and we all stood up and gave a bow to that particular project. Today, we are talking about something that has taken shape and has been planted in Abia State, Nigeria, a particular city called Aba, by Geometric Power Electrical. And some people might not understand it. That particular state is one of the worst affected when it comes to power supply. And a particular company took it up on themselves, and now they have power. This is day 5 of uninterrupted power supply in that particular city. To them, it's a miracle. To them, it's a surprise. They've never witnessed it before. And that is why Twitter is still buzzing when you come to those in that particular locality. With me on the show today is no other but our own learned colleague, someone we look up to. Mr. Sam, good afternoon and welcome to SOUQ Pulse.
Chuks, my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. You're welcome, sir. So we are looking at the geometric power plant in Aba, and we are asking ourselves this direct question. If this is a project Africa has said, okay, good, for this to have succeeded and come live, this is a successful project. How can we replicate? That is the first question. How can we replicate, be it in other states in Nigeria or in other countries in Africa, before we now start looking at specifics of how that project came about?
This geometric power initiative that has come into fruition is a welcome development, is salutary in terms of the creativity and the ingenuity that Bat Naji, a former Minister for Science and Technology, who is a professor, we need to look at the background and underscore the kind of courage that was put into this project. It dates back far back as 2006, where a concession was signed with the federal government to have a concession to provide power to Aba industrial cluster, which was improved to improve on the communities and beyond the commercial entity that took cognizance of that project initially. Chuks, you can recall that Aba is described as the Taiwan of Africa, where a lot of ingenuity in terms of processes, manufacturing, fabrication take place. So this project that has come maybe almost about 10 years after is salutary, but then we must look at the character of the person
that initiated the project.
Yes. Okay. One, the ingenuity is scientific creativity, and somebody who has even contributed to global knowledge in geometrics. Even some of the engineering feat, mechanical engineering feat, is named after that business. And providing that research, scholarship, and entrepreneurship is something salutary, and that we look forward to this kind of investment, courage, and that commitment in spite of the challenges that entrepreneurship presents in Nigeria in particular. This is very salutary, and that the people are celebrating the fourth day, 24/7, there's no blink. And I think these are things that we need to replicate. So the possibility of the ingenuity of Professor Batunaji, which he demonstrated in 2001 in Abuja, first and foremost, in partnership with the Power Holding Corporation of Nigeria and Abuja Municipality Council, is being celebrated by this remarkable feat. And I think maybe as we progress this engagement, then we'll be able to speak to some other issues. So for me, it's so comforting that we can witness a scenario where private sector has demonstrated an initiative of a 33 kV project in terms of power generation and distribution within the Aba municipal area. Then beyond the commercial, which was the initial project that was done by Geometric, then it's equally serving residential area. And I think this is a remarkable feat that we need to celebrate.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that. What are we going to call it? More like an overview to the beginning of this particular discourse. Because when we look at possibilities, when we see project or infrastructure that is not just there for eye to see, but is going to serve as a catalyst for development and productivity, that is one thing we should not just keep quiet. We should shout it and make sure it works and look for how that can be copied. Let me give us like a base. Abia State has suffered for a very long time thanks to poor power. You called that particular city Taiwan of Africa.
Africa, that's what is described.
Taiwan of Africa, powered by generators.
Yeah, regrettably powered
before Monday.
If you look at the trend of even diesel supply into that area,
okay,
they had consumed more diesel than any other place to power their machinery for fabrication. Okay. So even the Aba spirit, ingenuity spirit, the way I describe it, is second nature, to the point that in spite of those challenges, before 4 days ago where this project was delivered, they were still getting diesel to power those generations so that they can do their manufacturing.
Okay. Now, he just spoke more for the people in Aba. Now, let's look at the project itself. The project was conceived in 2004, signing and all that 2006. From 2004 till now, 20 good years of this. Not if it's a government project. If it's a government project, to say, okay, government have liberties, or government has a form of insurance, or government can hold funds, or government can hold fellow investors. But this was a private individual, a private company, having to hold on to this project for 20 good years. And as God will have it, both the investor and those supporting him were still alive. Because we've seen a lot of projects where whoever is championing it decides to go beyond this realm That's all. What can you speak to? A lot of issues came up within year 1 and year 20, be it human, be it legal, be it whatever issue. Is it possible here in Africa where our government will start focusing beyond policy, but looking at once this project is something that will affect the lot of people, government in their own interest should prioritize making sure it works across Africa?
For me, I think I would like to salute the ingenuity of Professor Batanaji and possibly, I think, the managing director. I don't know whether it's the daughter, but I suspect it's the wife, based on the industry experience, for pioneering that project. Two, you had a lot of political issues when that project came on stream. Those challenges were overcome, and it was possible that the initial challenge that Geometric went through was sufficient to break somebody that was not courageous. That's on the one hand. Number two, we must salute, but this is not advertising for specific bank, but because of this specific project that is beneficial to about 2.3 million people in the final analysis. If you look at the 2006 census, Abia, particularly that area, has a population strength of about 2.3 million, and they are going to provide electricity. We can look at the exponential effect this will have. That's one hand. We equally salute Access Bank in particular, that put so much money to support that project. Then other technical company like ABB and the electricity provider in the US, a cooperative that were the technical partner, in spite of those challenges, stayed true for this project. So first, courage of the founder of Geometric to understand the political configuration, leveraging on some of the success he achieved in Abuja, where he was able to demonstrate that
this is doable.
This is doable. So another thing I need to underscore that is important is that there was a relationship between research, between scholarship, and he was able to bring that scholarship, that research interest into entrepreneurship, and was able to sustain his theory of geometrics by providing power. First, uniquely about this business is that they are generating and they are distributing electricity. So which is unique. Thank God that that has been unbundled and that this will be an encouragement to other investors who want to partake in the minor grid. And that can eventually, when we have more investment, can fit into the national grid. And this challenge of power, which is inimical to economic growth and development, will be resolved.
Okay. Now, let's backtrack a bit. When we spoke about the Lekki Free Trade Zone, we had government pushing this. That's for the Lekki Free Trade Zone. We had past governors pushing this, and they saw to it that it was achieved. Now, we also had Nigerians invest in it. They also had the Chinese government, through some other means. They were the major financiers of that. Now, when we come back to this particular project, we don't have government pushing it. It was initiated by Geometrics.
Yes, just before you move on,
okay.
Initially, when that deal was brokered,
okay,
there was a government that was part of that concessioning. Okay, they gave a license of 20 years. Yes, no.
I'm getting to
beyond the concessioning.
I'm looking at the initiation.
The power holding company,
okay,
of Nigeria was part of the initial process.
Because
but
they control that particular industry.
They unbundled that eventually. So there was the hand of government beyond the concession in terms of the regulatory framework to project that the power holding as it was
to make
then
it work.
No, what I mean...
The power holding at that particular point in time was Alpha and Omega.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say is that that's a government enterprise. So we need to underscore that initially, in spite of that challenge, government had a hand in that business. So it's important that we point at, in spite of the politics of it, government at that initial
Initial stage?
Yes, stage.
Good.
The power holding was part and parcel of that process.
Okay.
But again, they were unbundled by the Jonathan administration, which eventually led to them pulling out in terms of concessioning. But I can't speak specifically unless I see that document at this point. But at that beginning, if you look at what was in the public domain, the PACN then was part of it. But then it's private sector driven in terms of design, in terms of equity, in terms of financing, in terms of technical partner, even from the United States of America. And that process was sustainable because you had a courageous researcher, a scholar, and somebody who has designed geometric that has added to universal knowledge. That geometric is one of the theory that was propounded by energy, which is a universal concept used for power generations and some ideas that works in that industry.
That was before he even came down this way to try
do
it
business,
out.
yes.
Now, let's also make this clear that the name you've been hearing, Bat Energy, is an African. So don't you stay there and think maybe there was another importation to come to this. He's an African. Now, this particular installation of this gas plant is 181 megawatts installation capacity. And they also, along the line, built 110 kilometer of transmission lines for 33 kVA and 11 kVA, substations, 4 substations, capacitor banks, and all that. All that it's completed. Now, this is just phase 1, which means they can still scale up. Why are we saying all this? We are trying to let you see the possibilities. We are trying to let you see that that uncle of yours that is doing very well and has the means, there are people he can partner with and get this done. That brother of yours that is investing in one other country somewhere outside your country or outside Africa, we can light up Africa and get productive. Now, sir, let's go this way. We have issues of noise pollution. That has been with us since the era of not going beyond 4,000 megawatts from the national grid. Now we have seen a possibility. It took 20 years to work. Now it is working. What will you tell the people in Sokoto that have all the sun? What will you tell the people in Bayelsa that has all the wind? What will you tell those in Lagos that is working, but not much information is out there? What and how can we start replicating this across board? This happened in Nigeria, so let's start from Nigeria before we start moving to next countries. Ghana is way ahead of us in supplying energy to their own people. Benin, their population is quite small, so yes, they can control that a bit. But now, let's start from this other side. If we need to get productive, how can we start replicating this project?
First, I think we have to salute entrepreneurial ingenuity. Entrepreneurship takes a lot of courage, so we can say that once you are an entrepreneur, you might be going through some challenges, but with that spirit can do its spirit, can sustain you in trying to see how you can manifest your idea, those ideas into actual projects, and those projects can be sustainable. So that's one of the lessons, that we have what it takes. So the environment by which you can encourage other entrepreneurs to thrive must be encouraged, particularly by government, in trying to grant concession to companies to operate, to provide generation, distribution. So the geometric has become a successful model which cannot challenge some of the assumptions, particularly from the public sector, that if we are determined and we are deliberate, then entrepreneurs, based on a private sector initiative, we can drive the process of re-engineering our country, and is it doable? And we have what it takes in terms of the ideas, in terms of research, in terms of the entrepreneurial drive to make us compete favorably. So the story gradually with this milestone that is achieved by Geometric will even be replicated elsewhere. Even Geometric itself, with this kind of pioneering efforts, and if you look at their tagline over the period of time, a pioneering company in Nigeria to have a full-fledged independent power project to ease final fruition from power generation to distribution. So I'm sure that other investors that will be skeptical about that industry will look at the numbers, will look at the revenue and the cash flow, and see how this uncommon fit by Geometric can scale up, first and foremost in Nigeria, then we can scale it up across the continent. And we have what it takes to do that.
Okay, we have what it takes to do that. Before we start experimenting on those particular things we have to get this done, let's go on a break. SOUQ Pulse will be right back. Hey, don't go anywhere.
Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekpetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enuowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with a daily service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande, SOUQ Enlightenment.
Hello and welcome back to SOUQ Pulse. We're here and we are looking at the Geometric power plant in Aba, and we're asking ourselves, how can we replicate this across Africa and get us moving, get us productive, get us on that part of not just infrastructure-wise, but hey, let's upgrade and get power across board so that every manufacturing company do not rely on generator or rely on source of power that is too expensive, that cuts down what they can actually do. Now, sir, let's come back to the government part of it. In 2023, the Electricity Act was passed. I think that was one of the good things that happened to that particular industry. Now, the government said, okay, states, you can generate. Individuals, companies, you can come together and generate. You can also distribute. It's part of that act. And you can also transmit and distribute with licensing from the state. Now, to what extent do we think we need to get this information out there? Because if you ask people out there, the first thing they will look at you and tell you is that you can't, okay, even if you generate, you can't distribute. Okay, if you need to distribute, then you have to get permission from the federal government. But that's, as of last year, that particular act gave authority to states to make sure that, hey, whoever wants to do this, let them come on board. National grid is on its own. Mini grids can be started. Micro grids can also be started. How can we get this message out there and get people doing this?
The truth of the matter is that we're gradually pulling to the concept of true federalism. There's so much power in the center, and that has been inimical to economic growth and development. So when that Electricity Act was tinkered with last year, moving it from the exclusive list to the concurrent list and possibly the residual list, we help to open up the industry. And that again must come into those other resource areas, particularly the mining of some minerals, particularly bitumen, that are still domiciled with the federal government. So we're able to break down some of this overbearing influence of the federal government. So the people who frame democracy, the concept of federalism, talk principally about devolution of power, the concept of decentralization. But Nigeria in the last how many years from when the military took over in 1966 has been over-centralized, which has been inimical to development. So the idea of unbundling the responsibility and moving it away from the exclusive list will help us on the path of development. So this is what specialists in terms of federalism call the territorial dimension of the state, where states can actually have power to legislate on certain items. So that is a good beginning. But I'm saying here, as we celebrate the remarkable feat of geometry in terms of power generation and distribution, this same item, as we move into another constitutional review, a lot of things need to be unbundled from the almighty federal government that is taking on
things like what?
The solid mineral. They still need to do some work in that area. We have bitumen, one of the best reserves of bitumen in Ondo State. But we're still using byproducts of petroleum to drive the process of providing materials for road development. So why can't we open up that sector? We have deposit of lithium in Nasarawa in commercial quantity. So once you're able to get even states and some other interests to invest in this area.
Sorry, we are kind of digressing a bit.
No, we are not.
I need to ask a question.
Yeah. I'm just saying that
if you go that route and say for these minerals, we should bring it down to the preserve of the states, don't you think the Niger Delta will also say, hey, if the states can handle that, then also bring crude to the preserve of the states?
But that has been one of the major advocacy
then
over
if
the
they
years
do this, then they have to do this
resource
too.
control. So if you talk about true federalism,
okay,
the way it's practiced elsewhere, even America that you borrow this practice from, even where you don't even have written constitutions, even like the UK, there are certain things that are domiciled with councils, and you're able to make people account, bring government nearer to the people, more investment. This bureaucracy, this big bureaucracy where everything is, you have to go to Abuja to knock at the door before you do things. And I think we need more. I just use this as a benchmark that if we can be successful in this kind of entrepreneurship in terms of power generation and distribution by a single entity, so to speak, to pioneer a major element where you're going to provide electricity to over 9 local governments with a population of about 2-point-something million people if you use the 2006 census. And I'm sure the population should be about 2-point-something. Forget what they put on the last voters registration that represent Abia State. So the point I'm making is that the more we unbundle.
Okay. Now let me hold that thought for you. I'll return it. Now, talking about this unbundling, how is the government going to deal with the discos? Because that is another big cartel on their own.
No, it's a competitive marketplace. So you already have license to operate.
Yes, you have license to operate. I agree.
Depending on the number
discos are controlling the facilities handling transmission. Are you going to build a complete new equipment for transmission if you decide to take up a village or a town?
A regulatory framework, a policy framework that says you cannot operate mini grids.
Okay.
So that cartel, that monopolistic idea of what is sustaining those discos.
Who will fund the transmission if you don't transmit via the facilities that are available already?
No, we're saying now that people can transmit beyond the national grid that currently exists. That's the mini grid.
On whose facilities?
You are going to create, people are going to generate those facilities.
That means you have to now bring up your own poles, bring up your own lines.
Yeah, people are going to
and leave
like
the old
this one
ones
that they have. In the first, they are distributing through the existing PACN facility.
Yes.
So they have that option. So now, mini grids will come up to take care of. I can give you a specific example. For example, in Asaba, Delta State, they have an IPP project that serves the state secretariat and the contiguous establishment within those areas being generated. So the point is that you can even form partnership with those distribution companies. And once the competition become open, if you can't compete, therefore you cannot stay in business. So competition will pull you out. If you cannot innovate, you cannot create, then like they say in marketing, innovate, create, or you die.
Okay. We are looking at innovating, creating. Now, let's come back to discos. We are using Nigeria as an example for those that might not understand. We are looking at Nigeria. Now, Nigeria is split into zones. Each of those zones comprising of certain states belong to specific discos. Discos are distribution companies for electricity in Nigeria. Now, for these discos, they have specific states where they are assigned to, where they bidded and got the contract. Yeah, I'll call it contract to supply power to those particular places. So the facilities there is supposed to be under their care. But from time to time, we've seen governments come to bail them out. Now, if, let's say, an example, Mr. A decides to do what Geometric has done in a larger scale for Ibadan, which happens to be one of the largest cities in Africa. Is he going to build new power lines when there are some existing under the control of a disco? How is he going to deal with it?
No, the point you're trying to make here is that once people are able to generate power, in the long run, there are going to be partnerships and collaboration with those existing companies and find a way to sign a contract for people to use our line if they are not able to get other people to put power on the line. So there must be a win-win situation that will come up. So there will be those people that are have investment in terms of generating power will find a way to liaise with those disco and put the power there. Where that cannot happen, new investment will come in terms of mini grid, in terms of community grid, like what happened elsewhere. I've lived in an environment outside Nigeria where about 1 month I stayed in a particular environment, the light was 24/7. So that is happening in other countries in Africa. So it's possible here. So competition will open up the space. When the market becomes very competitive, organizations, companies that operate within that sector will find a way to re-engineer their investment processes in terms of who they will collaborate with so that they can remain in business. But if they are not innovative, they are not creative, from a marketing perspective, they are going to die.
Okay. Now, let's take another example. Now, in my village, there is a river right there in my village with 2 tributaries. One is very fast, very, very fast. The other one is the big one where you can have boats and canoes crossing people. Now, if my village decides to take the smaller tributary and build a very small miniature hydro, I won't call it a dam. Yeah, it's still a dam. For power generation, are we still expected to go and get permission from the state to power 150 houses?
No, the point is that if it's community-led project, you have the Rural Electrification Agency that has the authority to provide electricity in terms of rural access. So within that regulatory framework, that policy framework, the community that is going to drive that project and that process must work in tandem or in consonance with the provision of the Rural Electrification Agency that is saddled by law to regulate rural electrification. So to that extent, therefore, if a community has the wherewithal to want to invest, then I think there will be some collaboration, some kind of arrangement between the communities and the Rural Electrification Agency. And I'm sure that the policy framework, I don't think they are very difficult framework to light up communities. And there's encouragement that people can use renewable energy sources that is domiciled within community to generate electricity. So you have a composite element within community. You have wind, you have a tributary in your community. If that can generate some commercial to generate power, and that can solve the electricity problem within the community, why not? So that is the beauty of the Electricity Act of 2023 that seems to have opened up that sector. So I'm hopeful that geometric pioneering efforts will help to stimulate investment, because there's a model to learn from, particularly from a professional who was in the academics, who is a scientist, who has moved away being a researcher to an entrepreneur. So people will look at it, and beyond even the geometric, they have about 4 or 5 or 6 business streams that deal with specific sector within that power sector in terms of consultancy and all that. So I'm sure that is a new day for Abian, is a new day for Nigeria, and I'm hopeful that is a new day for Africa as well.
Okay, let me cite an example. It's not an example. Let me cite something that it's going on within that same particular plant. Now, they have a 27-kilometer gas pipeline within the same state, to be specific, in Owaza. Owaza is not too far from Osisioma in Aba, but maybe I think because of the topography of the place. That's why the pipeline is that far. Now, their source of supply for gas is very close to the plant. Now my question is this. We have IPP, we have gas-powered plants from the government that came up during Obasanjo's time. Some were built, some completed, some not completed. But these are supposed to be gas-powered plants. But where they are located is very, I can say that very like 12 times and we'll still not finish this show. Far from source of gas. Now the issue they were now having is how to supply gas from point of gas field to point of power plant. What exactly were those that conceived this project thinking? And going forward, because those particular money has been dropped, whether they are going to work or not, that's not what we're talking about on this show. What advice will you give to future government people when conceiving projects like this?
The decisions to put those gas plants in specific location is simply political. It would have been necessary for the government to just put the plant near to the source of those gas, and that's a locational decision making in business. You make your decision in terms of certain element of your business based on the location to source of raw material or to source of energy or power. So some were politically motivated. For example, there's one before Ore. So, and I think the nearest gas point to that place must be from Delta. So you need to construct some lines to get the gas. I don't know whether that is currently working. I'm not too sure. The last time I checked, I know there are some issues. So simply political. So the point is that when we make certain decisions, the lenses of politics should be removed, and we understand that if you make certain decisions and you don't carry certain people along, then becomes...
when you say certain people, can we be specific?
No, certain area, because of the dirty politics, in quotes, that we play. You have what you call the federal character principle. There are new elements into the host community relationship that was built into the PIA, Petroleum Industry Act. All these considerations, some of them are highly political. So, but when you want to make a strategic business decision, therefore, politics is important, but then some critical national assets for decision making in terms of where you should side them should avoid the broad lenses of politics, trying to please certain categories of people. I think that is important. And I always use the point here of factor endowment. So if, for example, you want some political consideration, if they are close to the ocean, then you can put near that. Those who are close to gas, you side...
I really want you to talk about this, that you just glean on it a bit and you glean on it a bit, and this is like the third time. We are looking at Africa, using Nigeria as an example. If we look at the northern part of this country, they have all the sun you can get. If you look at the coastal part, they have all the wind and the ocean breeze and the ocean wave you can get. The gas is also there. Then if we look at the middle belt, they also have the sun, they have compost and all that. Should we start looking at, you've talked about it a bit, should we start looking at what is in that place and use it majorly to generate power, not looking at a source material or a feed that we have to move from one location to the next location?
That's the point I just spoke to. And I use the concept of factor endowment, which is a comparative advantage on a larger scale. What it means is that if you are blessed with sunshine, from Ondo up there, plenty of sunshine. So those decisions for those plants that were conceived as gas plants will have been done to take cognizance of renewable energy option in terms of the strategic thinking and the decision-making process that led us to some of those power plants where money has been pulled out of the system. And I listened to one of the guests in the morning who talked about evaluation of some of the government projects using the last World Bank borrowing by Nigeria in the last administration, that X amount of money was borrowed. But those who did the evaluation in the field were saying only 40% in terms of implementation that you can physically see. On the other hand, 60% you cannot account for, which has been filtered away through bureaucratic corruption practices. So the point is, the government must be strategic in terms of making decisions based on factor endowment that are contiguous to certain states, certain area. So when you use a locational decision-making process in terms of siting industry, the O-level economists told us one of the factors that you can use is based on location. And even in modern business, that factor is still a major player when you site something closer to the source of your market or to the source of your raw material. So this strategic thinking must be in the mind of those who help government to shape policy, so that this, permit my word, this madness in trying to suitate industry or projects or infrastructure based on the whims and caprices of those who have the political power to do so, we must find a way to do away with that. And as we do that in Nigeria, some other African countries that are weak by political consideration in making strategic decisions will equally learn from that, so that the citizen in the long run can benefit.
Okay. Now, before this geometric power plant in Aba came up, they had a power audit. Well, it sounds funny. Now, from their power audit, they were able to determine, you mentioned it a bit, but you didn't go there, so you need to really go to all these places before we leave, because we were almost out of time. They were able to determine the amount of power that within the industrial location in Aba and the surrounding environment, the amount of power they were generating from individuals, from generators. They did the same thing, and how much was being spent on diesel over a period of time. And if I must tell you, that is a bit shameful. Looking at what is possible and to what extent we've allowed things that are possible to decay. Now, is it possible that other states can emulate this, even if someone or an entrepreneur has not come up to take this up or start this project? Can't states on their own do this audit and keep it out there? So when you see this, you know that, okay, this is a viable project. This is a viable community to invest. This is a viable location to go to.
I think I spoke to that earlier when I mentioned that it was dependent on the scientific ingenuity of Pat Unaji, one, and I talk about research that he did, but I didn't just mention the specific research methodology that was used to garner data for that investment decision. And I mentioned that when you talk about diesel consumption in Nigeria, Aba was one of the best destinations based on their ingenuity to keep on manufacturing in spite of the challenge. So that research enabled Geometric to make that investment decision. So you have all kinds of research finding, even from the universities, polytechnic, and research institutions that are in the desk of researchers that can be turned into activities that will provide employment, generate power for industry, create productivity, national productivity. But then the political will and the entrepreneurial spirit or entrepreneurial ingenuity to stay on the curve. This project took about 20 years to maturity. The gestation period, 20 solid years, 2 decades. So, and that's why I said we should celebrate that spirit to stay on in spite of the challenge. And by extension, state government can take advantage of these various studies that are there. For example, the Delta builds, we're trying to build up an independent power project in Ogara in Delta State. There is a cluster where you have tank farms. And I'm sure they have done their viability and feasibility studies or business plan. But then politics killed that project. So and that's why I mentioned that we must remove these lenses, broad lenses, of using political expediency and political coloration to make decisions for strategic national assets that will benefit everybody.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Sam. It's always a pleasure having you, and today happens to be Friday. So it's also a pleasure having you on a good day when we are looking at a good project and looking forward to having other African countries or states in Nigeria replicate this project. So thank you very much for talking about this and, hey, enlightening us the more.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. We want to say to everyone out there, to our viewers, you are it. You are the reason we come here every day and we get this going. So we always tell you, don't keep quiet. Let's keep moving. If Lekki Deep Seaport could be conceived and right now is up and running, if geometric power could be conceived and after 20 years is up and running, we can do more. And to the states, to the countries, wherever you are, let's have this project in the face of everybody and let's replicate this. I want to say thank you very much. It's a beautiful weekend. Have a nice one.